And welcome to the midweek mailbag. We are back with another episode here live on YouTube and Twitch, and of course coming to you on all podcasting platforms. Myself, Jeremy Reisman, the producer and Lions beat writer for prideofdetroit.com. You can find me at Detroit Online. With me, as always, here to answer your questions is the managing editor, is the machine, is also Detroit Lions beat writer, and at Erik Schlitt on Twitter, Erik Schlitt. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, it's an interesting day weather-wise here in Michigan.
Sure is. It was like 50 this morning, and it's 30 now.
It was like in the mid-50s when I sent my kid to school with no coat, and now it's 31, and so I've decided to. I was gonna be in the garage. I was gonna have the door. I had the whole thing set. No, it's too cold. It's a nice reminder that we're still in February.
We are. And February also means NFL Combine Week, which is we are, I would say, in the midst of it, even though no on-field drills have been done yet. We've heard from Brad Holmes. We've heard from Dan Campbell. We've heard from some defensive linemen. And it's been kind of a news-heavy week so far. The NFLPA reports just dropped. Report cards just dropped. We'll talk about all of that in due time, but this show is all about answering your Detroit Lions questions, and if you ever have any questions for us, send them to us on Twitter using the hashtag SPOD. Look out for the call every Wednesday morning because we normally do these on Wednesday afternoon. And because it's NFL Combine Week, we are going to start with a couple NFL Combine questions. First, from our good friend Ashley David Soden, one of our mates over at over the pond, you could say.
Yeah.
Asks, how much do you think this team will weigh players not taking part in aspects of the combine and pro days? I know for the most part we don't value athletic testing, but does opting out go against the culture the team seems to value in their players? I think this is a really interesting question, Erik, because you would think like if you're a Dan Campbell type, you never shy away from competition. You take the NFL Combine as a challenge that you want to flash your skills. Do you think that maybe it kind of marks a negative if they back out?
It is an interesting question because if you look like it last year, Gibbs participated even though he was considered one of the top backs. Jack Campbell participated. Brian Branch participated, and Sam Laporta. All of them participated. Yet, when you listen to Dan Campbell at the podium this week, what did he say? He said, yeah, the drills are nice. We get everything on film. We'll be able to double check it against other numbers. Most important thing to me is the interviews. Right. So what they're telling, and I think history also backs that up. Interviews are massive for this team. Massive. They get 45 of them, and they tend to have interviewed almost all the guys that they draft. Like the 45 guys that they interview, the chances are the majority of their picks are coming from that pool. So the interviews are the most important. At the same time, they tend to draft guys that compete, right? Like that's and so I'm like, I don't know. I think every situation is a little bit different. There's injuries that are going to pop up that guys aren't going to, be fully healthy or maybe fully trained. And that's, you don't want to discount those guys because they can't perform. There's other guys that have put up a ton of film on tape, like the whole Marvin Harrison Jr. situation. He's a top 5 player. Like I'm okay with him being, pulling a Deion Sanders and saying, I'm going to go in the top 5. So those are the guys. That's what I'm going to focus on. But yeah, I don't think if someone purposely opted out, I don't know if that would negatively affect their status because there's so many other factors that come into play. Yeah. So I would say no, it won't. At the same time, if they're interested in the guy's probably competing.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to kind of weigh that, right? Because if you're that football mindset where you live, eat, and sleep football, competing in the combine seems like an opportunity to showcase that skill set and an opportunity to just compete. But at the same time, it's also not football. Like we hear NFL, rookies after the rookie year going into year 2 and being like, oh my God, this is so much better. Like I don't have to train for 3 months to get my body in NFL right. Combine shape, which is completely different than NFL football shape, So in a way, it isn't competing football. It's the underwear Olympics, if you want to use that term. So I don't know. I tend to kind of lean on what the players decide to do and what's best for them. Whether it is, I mean, if they're skipping out on the combine for sketchy reasons, you're like, oh, like if you like see a player and he's way overweight from what you expected and he's just there to do interviews, then you can be like, oh, he's not doing the skill set because he did not train in a proper way to get ready. If you have a sneaking suspicion that it's something like that, I think that could hurt I think that obviously will hurt your stock. If it's more like, hey, I'd rather be in a controlled environment at my pro day, I think that's totally fine. It might not make everybody happy, but like you highlighted, I think both Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have made it clear that the NFL Combine to them is an opportunity to get to know these players better as people and as competitors rather than their athletic profile. They have a pretty good picture of that already.
Yeah, the on-field drills and the measurable numbers, they're just double checks.
Yep.
Right? Like that's all they are. And we've heard Brad Holmes talk in the past about how if he has a good GPS time on a player and he has a high grade on the player, he wants him to perform poorly at the combine
right.
so that some teams
throws off
will
the
discount him.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. And so I would say this, the 40 time is the one that gets all the hype, and it's probably the least important of the drills. Now, it's important to a lot of NFL teams because it is a universal measuring stick that you can use from class to class to class across positions, and there's some depth value to that. But the Lions have shifted to the GPS stuff almost. Right. I don't want to say exclusively, but it drives the car here when it comes to athleticism. So we know they use it. You see it all over the building. You see it on their jerseys. I mean, like I've got pictures that I don't think I'm supposed to publish from the basement of Ford Field.
Right.
Where they have like the little tracker, the name of the company, Zebra Technologies, that does the trackers.
Right.
Right. Like there's like these little markers all over they're at Ford Field, they're in Allen Park, and that's what drives the Lions' decision making, not the 40 time.
Right, because
now
it's about functional speed, not straight line speed. It's how it doesn't matter how fast you run in a straight line because you're very rarely running in a straight line in the NFL. So yeah, how fast you're running in game, in practice, that sort of stuff matters way more to them, and understandably so.
Right. So yeah, I'm with you. I think there's value to the drills. At the same time, it's not as valuable as it is to some other organizations because the Lions supplement that knowledge in a lot of other ways.
Yep. Kind of going off the same topic, Tom Wilkinson, keeping in our across the pond theme here, is the NFL Combine as we knew it dying with the combo of the league office trying to further monetize it, plus the bigger players reluctant to test?
I don't know if it's look. It's always going to be a spectacle, I believe, is the word you like to use when we talk about it,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It has definitely turned into a television spectacle.
Right.
And the league has tried to monetize that by adjusting when they did the drills. Remember they tried to do it in prime time a couple of years ago.
Yep.
The problem is that they don't, the monetization of a football event and the combine don't align, meaning you can't put it in prime time because it doesn't mesh with like the schedule. It doesn't mesh with when the players are timed, the long days. It doesn't work. So they've been constantly tweaking the combine to try and find that balance because it is a massive money-making machine. But there's still value to it. Yes, it's becoming more commercialized, and I do think there are players that are opting out of different things, but there's still value. If there wasn't value, teams wouldn't send 30 employees to this event, right? You know what I mean? You wouldn't see hundreds and hundreds of credentialed media at these events, right? Like
you might.
There's still a ton of value. There's still a ton of value to the event itself. even if it's just from a medical standpoint,
Sure.
right? Like the medical information that they get, universal medical tests that are distributed to all the teams is a very even playing field. It's a way of getting all the right information. And then if you need follow-up tests, they do follow-up tests. And then if you want to do your own follow-up test, well, then you have those top 30 visits that you can use. So I don't think it's dying. I think they're finessing it to try and see how much money they can make out of it, yet not have all those guys opt out. Because the one year that they tried to put it in prime time, they got nothing. I
Right.
mean, all the skill players backed out of the agility drills, which was awful,
Right.
which was just awful. When they put the bench on the same day as the on-field drills, that was terrible. And that used to be before, and they hated that. Now
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
after, right? And so like they're constantly making tweaks to and what you've seen is that one year that players were opting out, they adjusted and players have come back to
Right.
doing it. And now they're mad about something else, right? Like they're mad about a mental test, right?
Sure.
You know, like the not a it wasn't the Wonderlic, it's whatever the CJ Stroud thing that everybody
Right.
got mad at. So like, no, I don't think it's dying, but I think it's constantly being tweaked to try and I don't think they have a perfect system yet.
I think part of the disconnect here is that what is appealing for the television is not what's appealing to the teams, right? And we just went over it, right? Like most teams I think are now kind of pivoting towards we're just checking boxes with the drills. We're not that concerned with that. It's about meeting with the players. It's about informal meetings. It's about meeting with other teams, right? Like free agency is less than 2 weeks away now. So part of the reason why the Combine is such a popular event too for the teams is they can mingle. They can start talking.
For sure.
I know they're not supposed to. I know it's not the legal tampering period, but it happens. And so it's an important event on the calendar for that sort of stuff. Like I listened to Ryan Poles' session yesterday, and he's talking about like, I haven't had any big conversations about Justin Fields, but a lot of teams, like my phone is constantly ringing this week with people like wanting to meet and have dinner and like all that sort of stuff. And so that marks this an important point in the calendar, even if it has little to do with the NFL Combine itself. Just like a bunch of people descending upon one city where they can mingle is important. Whereas, I mean, you can't televise that. You can't televise teams meeting with players. The actual like informative stuff. You can't televise medical checks. No one's gonna want to watch physicals on NFL Network.
There might be some HIPAA laws there
right.
too. But
Instead, yeah, like you're exactly. Instead, you're just televising like basic Olympic events, and it can be entertaining for some, but for a lot of people, it's okay. I already knew this about that player. Okay, like. And instead we try to hype it up as like, oh my God, like someone posted like the top 40 times of all time, and like it's just a list of players that have done nothing in the NFL. Like it's still and listen, like if that's what you're into, like yeah, it's fine. It's racing. Like it's track and field. That's fine. But in general, to me, I think that's why the NFL Combine as an event hasn't been that exciting to me, is because I don't have a lot of interest in watching that kind of competition. Plus, I don't learn that much information that I can't get elsewhere already. And so, I don't know. It's an important event for teams. I don't think, particularly for me, it's a very compelling TV event, but they've successfully made it one. And it's required a lot of tinkering, and a lot of people are into it, and a lot of people get amped up about the 40 every year, and that's fine. But in terms of value for a consumer from a TV point of view, I just, personally speaking, it's not much for me.
now, I mean that aligns with your ideology for the entire off season, though. So
Mostly,
I
but
get it.
But
Yeah.
yes, I think beyond that, I think.
But so like for me, I enjoy the 40s not because I enjoy watching the 40s. I enjoy the 40s because that's when I get to hear Daniel Jeremiah talk about the players.
Yes, it's a good
That's
introduction,
enjoyable
for
me.
sure.
Right. Yeah.
And with some of the top guys dropping out, like this is also, I guess you would say, a good opportunity to learn a little bit more about the depth of the class.
Right. And you tend to find out because Daniel doesn't write a lot, right? And so it's neat to get some of his perspective because he's a very in tune source
Sure.
for draft
Yeah.
information, right? And I enjoy the on-field drills because it's the same reason I enjoy training camp. Like I when I get to see guys move in a certain way, it helps open my eyes. It tells me what they can do, what they can't do. Um, I wish we could see the agility drills instead of the 40. Like I wish they would do the talk over the agility drills, but they don't. And so and it is what it is. So, but I do think there's fun parts of it. They try and make it entertaining. I like that they bring in um like former players. They have conversations.
Coaches and GMs join
I
them sometimes too, right?
right. I mean the most and a lot of that is just fodder, you know what I mean?
Fluff, a little bit
But
of
like
fluff.
right. But like when Dion used to be the on-field guy for defensive backs, my goodness, he was a wealth of information. He could look at a guy doing that hip flip drill and he would be like, yeah, no, that dude's gonna have to move the safety. Like, and he would be right. Like he
Yeah,
would like it's like it's crazy things like that where like he just knew like because he's that so well versed and experienced. So I find different benefits, and I've found over the years there's certain things when I can kind of like tune myself out and get some work
sure.
done, and then there's times when I'm like, okay, this is the drill that I want to see.
Yeah,
This is the player that I want to see run through this drill, and that's why I write the series of articles that I'm writing, the combine previews, because and then when the day comes up, I'll post little drills where I'm saying I'm watching this drill because this is going to tell me what I want to know, and so for me, I find it entertaining the entire way through. I wish they would show a little bit more, but again, I understand for the casual fan, maybe it not being as appealing. I understand for people who don't like the off season as much,
there you go.
how it might not be
Okay,
appealing.
you,
I did,
you've
I
you've separated me from the casual fan there. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
I had to add that because I didn't want you to think I was insulting you. Um, but and I understand, how it's not super appealing, especially like if you don't know what to look for, right?
That's true.
Like like for me when I first started, I didn't know what to look for. I was just watching to gain information, but like as you get more experience and you learn different schemes and how things work and the different preferences of different regimes, you can pick things out. You can say this translates in this situation and you know, that's ideally what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to look at this type of skill is going to translate to what the Lions are looking for. And so, and then I'll write it.
I just have that assessment of every player already, so I don't need it.
Oh, you have it done? You
Yep.
have it got it in
Yep.
the bank?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's already up here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I look forward to your write up on all the stuff and I get a nice break.
No thanks. Our next question here comes from Zach. Sorry, Zach Gascoigne. I'm sorry about butchering your last name there. It says guard is going to be a position that we have to sign or draft multiple people for. What does the free agency class look like, and names to watch for the draft? Since we're on kind of the NFL Combine portion of this mailbag, let's start with draft. Who are some of those guys?
There's a ton.
There's a
right?
ton, right? Like, and there's so
we-
many that are versatile too. So,
Mhm.
who are some of your favorites in particular with their fits to Detroit?
Yeah, we've gone over this in like on our weekend show with Ryan.
Yeah.
We talk. I feel like I talked like about 8 different guys.
Yeah.
I will, I'll try and narrow it if I can here. I mean, it's hard. It depends. Like,
Yeah.
because if you're looking for a guy that's in the first round, you're looking for Fatianu or Powers Johnson out the center out of Oregon, but
Yeah.
Fatianu is a tackle guard, whereas Powers Johnson is a guard center. So like, it depends on which skill set you're kind of looking for. But those are like the top 2 guys, the top guys at each of their like kind of hybrid positions. A guy like Graham Barton is gonna be another like multi-position player who could come in and start. Zach Frazier, we talked about his grit over the weekend and why he's a fit because of that. Guys like Cooper Beebe and Zach Zinter have a ton of experience in gap schemes, and the Lions use a lot of gap blocking, so they're they're I think a little bit more advanced into fitting in
Yeah.
to the what the Lions do. Now Lions run a lot of outside zone as well, and that's part of it. And so do Michigan and Kansas State, and that's fine too. But Michigan and Kansas State push a lot of gap. And because of that, it helps their offensive linemen transition a little easier to line style. So those guys are going to be high on my list. Christian Mahogany, or I'm sorry, Christian um, yeah,
Haynes.
Christian Mahogany
Oh.
from Boston College. Christian Haynes is great too from
Okay. I
UConn.
was gonna say there's back to
He's
back
got a good
Christians.
mentality. Yeah, and then Mahogany is another Boston College
Yeah.
kid. Boston College runs some gap too, so you're going to see a nice fit here. He's power based, and so he's another guy. Like those are like some of the top. I mean, those are guys you can. Some of them, those guys I named, you're going to find in round 3,
Yeah.
right? And then but the majority of them I think are the first or second rounders, and they're guys that are also probably like plug and play. So lots of options if you need to replace or if you need to draft for the future.
Right.
Because let's say they retain Jonah and Graham, they still may need to draft Graham's replacement down the road,
For
right?
sure.
And so you might see them invest in an offensive lineman, as a replacement option, and man, use a high pick on it.
I don't want to get too much into free agency because I think we'll hit that pretty hard next week, kind of as more of a free agency focused midweek mailbag. But I do want to throw out one name because he is recently on the market. Any interest on your end with a reunion for Laken Tomlinson?
I don't know.
Just turned 32 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know he's done very well since leaving. He did better leaving after he left Detroit.
He was great in San Francisco. He has not been
Right.
great with the Jets, but I mean that might just be fit, right? Because like there is if you're just looking at PFF grade, he like drops 20 points as soon as he lands in New York, and could be an age thing, could be a Jets thing. But I mean I don't. Okay, go ahead.
I didn't watch. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of the Jets last year because they were terrible, and
particularly
so
on the offensive line.
Yeah, and well, offense in general, quarterback position, and so yeah, I didn't get a chance to see like what was the reason for that drop off? I
Right.
guess. So yeah, I don't know. I'd say no,
Probably not,
because I don't know, because it could be he's 32 and
right.
he sometimes that's the end. You know what I mean? Like
I think like the interesting kind of like philosophical conundrum here is if you don't re-sign Jonah, how do you want to refill his spot? Do you want to risk like your kind of offensive line chemistry and just the overall unit with a rookie? Do you think Colby is ready to step in? Would you rather fill it in with a veteran like Laken who can like at least be a stopgap while you continue to build your depth out or take along a rookie? Because I mean, we've heard everyone say it all year, all past few years, is like this offensive line is the engine under the hood. It's so important to what they do. Are they willing to risk a rookie out there starting at left guard, starting at right guard, wherever they need it? If it's, I mean, I think it's fair to wonder if, unless it's a bona fide stud like Penei Sewell, is this regime going to be willing to do that? Are they willing to trot out a third rounder that could mess with the entire chemistry of that offensive line? I don't know.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I don't think they'll wait till the third round.
Right.
I think they'll draft one earlier.
Yeah.
I wonder how much the league is going to value Jonah. Excuse me, with the injury history over the last 2 seasons. The more I think about it, and the more I see like some national perspective on it, I wonder if he'll be devalued because of that. I've always thought he'd be a little devalued with the Lions because they've seen those injuries up front, and I thought the market was going to be a lot higher for him. If the market isn't that high, I think if Jonah's making below 11, I almost think you have to go get him. Like you have to make that happen. It depends. I think he's such a good player that someone's going to pay him. I think someone's going to pay him over like 12 million plus, right? And I don't think the Lions would. But if his value is not as high and that price is lower, I'd retain him just because the team loves him. It's easy. It's like, it's the same reason, like the more of those guys you can bring back on offense, the easier it's going to be able to maintain. And then you can just add and then just elevate yourself that way. I don't think you need, like, there's no real position on offense where you're like, we absolutely have to upgrade this spot. It's like, if you can maintain and then add a little bit, even if you're just adding depth, the offense can get better.
Yeah.
And there are, so I'm not looking at guards saying this is a position you have to upgrade. This is more of a position where you're like, just don't get worse.
Yeah. Don't take a step back. Exactly.
Right.
And listen, continuity is kind of the name of the game when it comes to offensive line play. And we all know, there are those stats out there, those advanced stats. They were at their best when Jonah was in that lineup. And so,
it's a former Pro Bowler for a reason. Right?
Yep. All right, let's take a break here. When we come back, more of your Lions questions. We're going to shift a little bit away from the combine and the draft. We've got some other interesting questions over here on Twitter. As always, if you want to send questions, send them to a hashtag AskPOD there. But let's take a break. When we come back, more questions. All right. We are in break time, which means we can answer any of your guys' questions here on YouTube or Twitch. I'm going to pop in YouTube chat here in a second. While I do that, I'll also go through some alerts here on Twitch. We had a bunch of them. Starting off with Boogie, 20 months subscribed to the channel on Twitch. Thank you so much, Boogie. Or Bougie. I can't remember which one I'm supposed to call you, but either way. Lost Oceans, thank you for the 3 freaking years. Subscribe to the channel, says 3 years have flown by to 3 more. Let's do it. Bronco 81, 8 months subscribe to the channel, says you guys are the best. If you had to irresponsibly spend on one free agent, who would it be?
Jalen Johnson.
Subscribe to the channel. But the problem is,
it said irresponsibly spend.
But the problem is, so like, you won't even get the opportunity.
I would, if we're being irresponsible, and he gets, if he gets franchise tag,
you're sending the 2 first-round picks.
You said irresponsible.
Okay. You're right.
Like,
you're right.
You said if there's a guy in the way I read that is, who is the one guy in free agency that you would take, like that you want, that it would be the biggest immediate improvement? That's Jalen Johnson.
Chris Jones.
All right, that's. Might even be better than mine.
Yeah, like if I get a blank check and no salary cap, I'm throwing all of my draft picks, all of my salary cap to Chris Jones.
Yeah, all right. No argument there.
I want a disruptor. I want a guy who will follow up on what Levi Onwuzurike said he was going to do on draft night. If you may remember the verbiage he used. Yeah. Step Brothers. Exactly. Baller Milio, thank you for 11 months subscribe to the channel, says finally catching the show live. Hey, welcome. Thanks for the support. If you've been subscribing behind the scenes while not watching live like that, that's very, very kind of you, because half of the benefit of subscribing to us is no ads. And if I guess you might get ads if you watch us on repeat. I don't remember. Either way, appreciate the support. Thanks. And I hope you're enjoying the live experience. If you got a question, we could answer it live.
Could just be that they only watch the live shows at night because they work during the day.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Like most
that
people.
Could be why.
Justin, thank you for the 29 months subscribe to the channel. Roar the Lions UK. We've been repping you guys all podcast. 100 bits says
it helps when Ash and Tom jump in.
True. When is the POD combine? That's the real moneymaker. It's a real moneymaker for nearby hospitals, is what it is. I don't think anyone actually. You guys might enjoy watching that. I would not. I'm not sure I would enjoy competing in it like a true NFL combine. Like the media skills competition. that's nice and relaxed, and you don't have to like physically assert yourself too much.
Unless you're in a tiebreaker.
Well, yes. I have seen Erik run a 40-yard dash, and
it's horrible.
he did not enjoy it, and he may have been injured for the next 3 weeks.
I'll never run another 40-yard. Oh, like 3 months. My heels hurt for like 3 months. The whole summer, my summer was shot because my heels hurt so bad.
To be fair, it was the old turf, so let's just blame the turf.
Yeah, it's true. I'm glad I didn't tear anything. Oh, that was the worst. I begged to go into like a throw off or something like that instead of
really
a 40.
Did.
Because I was up against Nolan and Tim Twentyman. Tim Twentyman is a former college quarterback. And I was like, I'll throw against him rather than run against him.
Like when they first said it was going to be a 40-yard dash, I think your response was no. Like, I'm not doing that. Nope. Just nope. And if I was Brad Holmes, I'd be like, you know what? That's a character. You know, he doesn't want to compete. Taking him off my board.
It's not that I don't want to compete. I just know my
afraid to
limits.
compete.
You know what's we're having being a little bit older than most of the people I interact with. Coworkers, my wife, you know.
Sure.
Most people, the majority of the people I interact with.
Your children.
Well, I get to see things coming down the road that you guys don't, because I've already experienced it. Right?
Sure.
So
all of our bodies are going to degenerate the same way yours has.
Oh, dude, when I hit 30, you know why I always talk about like NFL players dropping off at 30? Because when I hit 30, that was when it stopped. Like for me, that was it. It was literally I was fine.
So
the going into the winter of age 30, and when I came out of that winter when I turned age 30, I was a different man.
So to be clear, you think your body had the same treatment as a professional athlete in your 20s? No. I'm saying that your body just breaks down. And so, okay, well, look, I've seen, I have seen, I'm like, when I was this age, that's when my back started hurting a little bit more. And then when everybody younger than me that I talk to starts creeping up on that age, and then they're all like, oh, my back's starting to hurt. That's I just laugh because I know, I'm like, oh, you all made fun of me. I'm just saying.
Now you're reaping what you sow type of thing.
The maintenance of a professional athete's body might be slightly better than yours.
But I'm not talking about professional athletes. I was using that as a comparison. I was just trying to compare. Okay. Like it was an analogy. Let's go back to making fun, talking about you guys and our POD Combine 40. You guys are just starting to get to these. So, well, not all of us, not everyone on staff, but some of you are getting to this age where you're going to start like, oh no, I'll break my finger trying to catch a baseball with no glove, or I'll hurt my leg playing tennis. Like you're starting to get to that age where you're starting to break down a little bit and not understand quite why, because you're still young and vibrant. So
you know what? I'm gonna add another one. Another example of me injuring myself doing something mildly athletic. I played disc golf last week, and my side hurt for 3 days. just from torquing too hard.
Did you say twerking too
not
hard?
Not twerking, torquing.
Oh, I thought it was a different kind of disc golf. No. I had not heard of it before.
But I played yesterday, and I feel fine, so there you go.
Kula, I don't believe you're that old, and you look like you're 24. So I believe you feel like you're 24. So good for you. I do not feel like I did when I was 24. I am sore.
I did hurt myself playing tennis. I really thought like I tore something, and maybe I did, but like the way I described my latest tennis injury, because I also broke my wrist back in the day, stepping on a tennis ball and landing on my wrist. But it felt like someone hit a tennis ball as hard as they could in my calf. It like popped. And like I had to be helped to my car.
I thought
And
I
I
tore
mean,
my Achilles on a diving board, jumping on a diving board. I'm just, this is your life.
yeah,
This is your life now.
yeah.
And so, yes. Oh, by the way, killer cornbread, those happen in your 40s now, just so you're aware. Um, Colonoscopies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, well, look, it's you do it to stay healthy, right?
Breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Not for the Lions, but for the NFL that'll send shockwaves around teams that need a backup quarterback. Zach Wilson has been given permission to seek a trade.
Interesting.
Is it? Is it?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
With the way the Jets have treated him?
They're not. No one is trading for him. No one. No, they're not.
Just so I'm.
Oh wait, he's still on his rookie deal, so maybe someone will give up like a late round pick or something.
Just so I'm remembering this correctly, Zach Wilson is a guy who they're like. They at some point they were like, you need to come back and play, and he's like, no.
Yeah, that's about right.
And that was because like at some point they had told him like, we're shutting you down for the season.
Yep.
You're not going to play anymore. And then I don't remember who they played, but they're like, oh, it was Tim Boyle, right? They played Tim Boyle, and they're like, by the way, we were just kidding about sitting you for the rest of the season. That was just a little motivational tactic.
What a disaster they are.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get everyone's. I've now toyed with Lions fans twice today. I don't know if you saw what happened on Twitter earlier. I didn't mean to. But like I said, because there was a report that the NFL, report cards were going to get released, and I sent out a tweet saying, "Hey, last year they're 16th. I wonder where they're going to be this year." Mm-hmm. And then it came out, and I responded to that tweet. I didn't provide any context because I was responding to my own tweet.
Oh, is it where you said, "Yeah, all right"?
I said, this year the Lions moved up to 13.
Yeah, I thought they traded up too when I saw.
Did you really?
When I saw, yeah, I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "What did I miss?" And it wasn't even that I saw it, but I get alerts when people we follow like the tweet.
Yeah.
Somebody liked it, and then it showed up on my phone, and I was like, I had no context because I have been buried in linebacker tape trying to write my last combine preview article, and so I've just been trying to get it. I've got and so. Yeah. I have a nuts day. I'm trying to get it all done this morning. It did not get done. And so that just pops up on my phone, and I'm like, what in the world?
When I sent out that tweet,
little panic.
I obviously didn't mean to do that. As much as I do like to play with Lions fans, I wouldn't do that. But like I sent out that tweet, and then like I got working on the article. I'm like, okay, this like now all the information is out. Let me go see what everything's there. And then like I get ready, I send it to you guys to edit it, and then I like pop my head back up into Twitter, and like I just see a bunch of people like, "What do you mean? What did you do that for?" I'm like, "Oh, jeez, I'm sorry." And then I'm like, but at the same time, like, why would the Lions be trading up to 13 right now, 2 months away from the draft? Plus, if they're trading up, we all know they're not trading at 13, right? They're picking 12. No, they're picking 12th.
Why? Oh, why? Because they pick 12 all the time?
Yeah.
Last two drafts?
Yeah, that's right.
Who has 13? Vegas? Yeah.
Thinking Fields gets
Vegas
traded by the weekend. If I had to guess what direction that's going, I don't know. Like I thought
by this weekend, I don't think so.
Probably not. But I'm just like, do you have a feeling on where Chicago is going to go with that whole thing? I think if I had to guess right now, I'd lean that they're going to draft a guy and trade Fields.
Yeah, I agree. Well, look,
I don't think that's what they should do, for the record.
Just from a financial standpoint, it's cheaper to take the rookie quarterback and get another rookie deal.
Sure.
You know what I mean? For multiple years.
Yeah.
So the problem is your coach in a fight for your life type of year? And if that's the case, you're now strapping him with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And they're not all CJ Strouds. I can tell you that. So
If you don't get immediate production out of your guy, does that mean you're doing a coaching overhaul in year 2 of your rookie quarterback?
It's
or does that, like, do they make that move and say, all right, you got a 2-year cushion? The coaching staff, like,
do you want? But how long do you want to sit on that coaching staff? Like,
yeah,
they've done stuff so backwards that they're almost like they got like 3 years, and then they're like, "Oops, we want to hit the reset button," and so then now you're going to give them another 2 years. Like, is their contract even 2 years longer? Like, their contracts may only be 1 year. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I think the GM has a longer leash than the coaching staff.
Yeah.
But like, if their coach is really if he's in his contract year, or if he's in a you have to win or you're in trouble year, and didn't they just go like 7-9 or whatever it is, 7-10
something like that.
Last year, something like that, right? Like, so they were finding a way to win with Fields.
Yep.
And then if you trade Fields, draft a new guy, and then you finish with less than 7 wins, he could get fired. And then now you're taking that rookie quarterback.
Yep.
And you're now having to start over again in his second year. So it's like hitting the reset button on the rookie quarterback, and you've just lost a year of that valuable contract.
Yep.
So like, it's like they can't get everything aligned and can't get everything on the same page in Chicago, which is why I'm pretty confident it doesn't matter what they do, because if I'm Chicago, I trade out. That's what
I agree. You got a young core already on defense. Now tackle the offense.
And you were starting to click in some areas, and you've spent some money on that defense. You've got another set of money in free agency if you want again. So I think from a Lions standpoint, you almost want them to take the quarterback.
I agree.
If you're a Lions fan.
We had an article on. I wrote a question of the day
John.
on that.
You did, or John? I thought it was one.
Me.
Okay, I remember I had to.
It was a Monday question.
Oh, was it the one that you?
But I took it.
It was Monday.
Yes.
It was the day that John was supposed to do. Yeah,
Yes.
Was unable to do it. That's why I thought it was John.
Yeah. Let me get through some more alerts here. I have a couple good questions that are coming in through the chat too. We'll get to those in a second. Another good question here comes from someone who's subscribed, Austin Mammoth, 18 months subscribed to the channel, says, our second Twitch baby wants to know, what are your expectations on Terrell Williams' impact on the defensive line? We learned a whole lot more about Terrell Williams in the past 24 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys read the Kyle Meinke piece, but I would absolutely recommend it because
enlighten us.
To me,
everyone go read it, but enlighten us anyways.
Yeah, I don't want to steal all the thunder there, because it's the one thing that I keep regretting on missing out on the combine is when the Lions have new hires. This is kind of their first introduction of them, and they pull Lions media side, and have them just kind of have a little sit down with him. But anyways, really sounds like Terrell Williams very much still had a job in Tennessee, first of all, which I think is important to note, because they obviously had a regime change after firing Vrabel, and you'd think Vrabel defensive coach, maybe that meant Terrell Williams was out. Didn't sound like that was the case. Sound like if he wanted to stay, he could have stayed. And instead, when Dan Campbell comes calling, who he shared a year with in Miami, and obviously he also shared a year with Brad Holmes as Brad Holmes' positional coach. 3 years there?
Thought, right? Yeah.
There was a connection there, and there was almost a sense of urgency that he had to take this job, because it was joining the Lions, because it was joining Dan Campbell, because, as he put it, he's joining two people who he can trust, and when he can trust people on the coaching staff in the front office, then they can have tough conversations. And I love that line, because if you don't know someone, if you don't trust someone, you're kind of non-confrontational with those people, right? And that being non-confrontational can lead to problems building up. And since there's already a comfort level there, I think that's going to make it. I think that alone, like, not even talking about Terrell Williams' resume as a coach and a guy who can help develop your players.
Dan Campbell said he's best defensive line coach in the league.
Right. Even putting that aside, like that ability to communicate with people inside the building, that is exactly what this team is looking for across the board. And when we hear him say, you know, he doesn't really address the people that they fired, but how does he talk about those people? Great coaches, they weren't a fit. They weren't a fit. And yes, some of that is just like, I'm sure he's just being nice to those people, but Terrell Williams is going to be a fit. Terrell Williams is going to be a guy that Dan Campbell can say whatever he wants to, and Terrell Williams can say whatever he wants to Dan Campbell. There's not going to be bickering. There's not going to be, I mean, there might be shouting and stuff, but it's all going to be based on a place of respect. And that's going to, I think that alone is going to be like such a good culture fit, and it'll allow the Lions to hammer out some problems that they've had in a good, productive way.
He said he wants to be aggressive. He was like, don't worry about this.
Violence is the word he kept using.
Yep. Which is music to my ears.
Yeah. I mean, the defensive line identity has just been like so hard to pin down sometimes, because sometimes it's like, all right,
it's been erratic,
right?
And they've changed it so many times too.
You know, they came into 2023 being like, all right, we're going, or maybe this is 2022. We're like, we're going to be this aggressive style, and then like a month in, they're like, let's go back to two gapping.
Yeah, it was two gapping in 2021. They wanted one gap in 2022, then switch back to two gapping. They finished the season doing gap and a half. Started this year with the gap and a half, then shifted back to two again.
Right.
And then because they wanted to start blitzing their other guys. So like the ideology and the types of guys that they're trying to acquire are like one gappers, like these penetrating aggressors, yet they always default to two gapping because their priority is to stop the run. And so that's why they end up, like, I think, settling in that gap and a half when they, you know, that's where they'll end up. But like, yeah, this is a theme for the defense, right? Like, what constant has there been on the defense? Because they have gone into the season with one approach and then changed it halfway through the season every single year. And it's a credit to the players for being flexible and adaptable.
Yep.
It also illustrates that schemes aren't wildly different. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
like players can adapt. Yep. And granted, you know, there are big differences. Like you're not going to draft Jelani Tavai to play in this defense, right? You're not. I mean, he's doing great in the Patriots scheme, but that's fine. But he's not going to do well in this one. But yeah, just give me the violent aggressor. That's what I want in my alignment, offensive and defense. I want my offensive and defensive linemen to basically want to put you in the ground, like over and over and over.
Next alert here comes from McVay Rob, 18-month subscribe to the channel, says, what guys currently on their rookie deals locked down, do the lines lock down and make lines for life? Amon-Ra, Hutch, Panay. Yes.
That's your three, the three pillars of this organization.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, those are the guys that you will offer lifetime contracts to if you could.
But let's expand that beyond not just guys that would get re-signed this year.
Mm-hmm.
Who else, either maybe they're entering year 2, maybe they're entering year 3, would you put in that category? Is it too early to put anyone from last year's class in that category?
Yeah, probably. I mean, personally, I would give Brian Branch a contract forever.
Okay. Yeah.
Personally. But my goodness, the rare air that is Sam Laporta,
right,
to be an all-pro tight end,
as
a rookie, that just doesn't happen. And like, those guys, you absolutely cannot let go.
Yeah.
So I would put him in consideration
Sure.
because he's just a rare guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't you dare say Jahmyr Gibbs.
no, and I'm not gonna say JMO either. I mean, like,
No.
you know,
JMO's got a lot to
like,
prove this year. This year's a huge year for JMO.
look, I love both those guys, and I think what they do is fantastic.
I agree.
Can I? Oh,
But you
um,
don't want to give out lifetime contracts to running backs. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be Mr. Positional Value, Mr. Running backs have short shelf lives, but don't give running backs lifetime contracts. It never works.
Can I give one to Frank Ragnow because I
No.
don't care how long he's ever hurt. I don't
He's
care how
not
long
on
he's
his
hurt.
rookie
If he wants-
deal. That's what the question
all right.
is.
Yeah, sorry, that was a qualifier. I forgot. I'm now looking.
You're
through
just
the
looking
list.
for overall pillars right now.
Yes. All right. Hold on. Rookie deals still. All right. Yeah, that might be it. I love Brian Branch to death, so I would sign it. But Laporta is a unicorn. I mean, we use this phrase, right? Oh, he's a unicorn. Oh, he's a freak. And so, a all pro as a rookie tight end that's a unicorn.
Yeah,
man.
absolutely. It absolutely is.
So do you know how absolutely fascinated I am to see how our full staff rankings are going to go this year?
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know how I'm going to sort it. Like, I don't. Like, there's going to be guys that are going to make massive leaps up the board.
The top 10 is going to be very difficult to fit all 10 players that you feel are worthy this year, which is the opposite of the problem that we usually have. We're usually like, does Jack Fox belong in the top 10? I don't think we're going to have that problem this year. I hope. Well, I know there's going to be one person that ranks Jack Fox in the top 10 every year, but like that was always a conundrum for us. For me, at least personally, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to put a punter in a team's top 10. That's not going to be a problem this year.
Didn't they, including the opt-outs, didn't they have 8 Pro Bowlers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, my goodness. Like, I mean, that just tells you it's just a crazy difference where they are. They've just continued to develop.
The only guy we didn't mention on this list that might be in the discussion is Kirby Joseph. But I feel like he's also a guy that's entering year 3 that's kind of pivotal to where we're going to move ahead. Like, year 1, it looked like, yeah, he might be one of those foundational pieces. He took a little bit of a step back last year. He's not a bad player. He's still a good safety, but
I thought Iffy was the best safety on the roster.
He was
to end the season.
I mean, to end the season for sure.
And Iffy is a guy who is eligible for a contract extension, and I'm even hesitant to give him a contract extension because he's only proved it for half a season, right?
True.
And so, but I think he was the best safety they had last year.
Yep. LGB Ruff.
Crazy.
It is crazy. LGB Ruff, thank you for the 50 months, 50 months subscribed to the channel, which means we've been streaming for over 4 years as an affiliate here on Twitch. That's crazy. All right, we're caught up on alerts, which means I want to answer some of the questions from people who didn't subscribe or didn't renew their subscription today. You might be,
or maybe already are. Right?
Yeah. Let's go to Robo35 first. Hopefully you're still over there on YouTube, because I think it's a slightly interesting development from the report card, and I saw some other people mention it. One of the places where they didn't rate as highly as I think maybe some people expected was ownership. They got a B-. Sheila got a B-. Was that surprising to you? Shocking to you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Just because I think we have a different perspective on her because we see,
because we've seen where they came from.
Right. But I also think there's probably parts of the organization that the players are not exposed to.
Sure.
That maybe we are. for example, one of the things that I think she's great at is her willingness to give Dan and Brad whatever they whenever they want something new.
Sure.
Hey, I want to find a spot on my coaching staff for this guy, and I don't have a spot. Can I create a new spot? Yes. Hey, I have a spot in my front office that I want to create a new spot for this guy. Can I create this new spot? Yes. They've created like 5 or 6 spots in the front office that were not there before she took over. Those 5 or 6 spots, how much money is she spending on those guys? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even if it's, I mean, it's got to be an insane amount of money, because some of these spots are like high up spots that like they're going to make a good chunk. The Chris Spielman role, there was never that. They never had Chris Spielman. Like they have different scout roles that they never had. They have like Disner's role has been elevated, and then to bring Sosa in behind him as well. Like that was never around. The John Dorsey role was never around before. Like those all cost money. And so her willingness to spend behind the scenes is a huge part of being an owner that I don't think she ever really gets a ton of credit for. Like she's spending millions of dollars more than she was prior in order to make the team better. So
I think you're right in that the players are missing that key piece of context that is new in Detroit, that the Lions have come a very far place in that. But like when you look at the NFL report, it's saying exactly what you said is where she graded poorly compared to the rest of it. Like it says club owner Sheila Ford Hamp, I don't know why it says Ford in there, receives a rating of 8.1 out of 10 from Lions players when considering her willingness to invest in the facilities. Like facilities versus team is a little bit different, but like that ranks 21st overall. And I personally disagree with that. Like, and even if you listen to Dan, some of the times he's talked about Sheila to the team is exactly like this. It's saying like everything I've ever asked for, you guys have to understand this. Everything I've ever asked her for, she's done. And that's been such an integral part to what we've been able to do, because she's never said no. She cares about this team, and every single request that I've had, we've seen eye to eye on. It's just like, where's the disconnect?
They said, hey, we're getting injured on this turf. And she went, all right, cool. Let's replace it
right away. Like, let's not wait a year. Let's do it right now.
Yes. Like, and again, that is not cheap.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that she had. And again, there's only so much money that she's going to have at her disposal. Granted, like she's billions of dollars and stuff like that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like, in order to run a business, like the Lions are one of the lowest grossing teams
31st
in the NFL.
31st.
Right. Right. So like the money she has at her disposal is limited.
Yeah.
Which is why we've seen ticket prices go up now that they're good, because they're trying to get off of that 31st ranking, because when they get off that 31st ranking, then what does she do? She takes that money and she puts it back into the team, right? Like
ideally.
So like if the it's a hard path to be on, because you can't make everybody happy, because you can't just generate money out of nowhere, right? Like if you want to make the players happy, you got to charge a little bit more for your product. You charge a little bit, but if you can't charge too much for your product, or you're going to lose your fans, and then you can't invest back. And so like it's a hard balance. And so, but for her, the way that she has spent, it's been constant, and it has been at millions of dollars more than her mom or father ever did.
Right. One interesting thing, because I just looked this up. I was curious. Like, okay, Sheila, maybe the perception is the team isn't worth that much. They're not spending that much. Maybe that's why she's so low ranking. Think of the opposite. Think of one of the most valued franchises and a guy who exorbitantly spends on facilities.
Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones, 19th. 2 spots higher than Sheila. And so what that might be telling me is maybe there's just like a buddy-buddy disconnect between really old owners and really young players. Right?
Certainly.
Like, can Sheila really like relate to the players on a personal level? I'm not going to sit here and say she can't, but I've never seen that dynamic really play out, whether you're talking about her in the locker. Like, I mean, and that's not her job, to be clear. But like when you see her in the locker room, she's kind of like out there on the peripheral. Like she doesn't want, and I think that's just her management style, right? Like she doesn't want to get too involved with the football stuff because that's not what she does.
But she learns, like
she learns, but
studious, and she learns about the players too. Like
sure.
She wants to know about information about them. But yes, I agree with you.
And so like I think maybe some of the players are expecting a more like armor on your shoulder type of ownership where they're like a little bit more involved in their lives, maybe. But again, I don't think that's what it doesn't play to Sheila's strengths necessarily. It's not necessarily her job. And I think the Lions have plenty of staff members in terms of their coaching staff that are willing and able to take on that role.
I'm trying to remember. Who was the Ravens owner before Biscotti?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Someone Erik DaCosta, but that's general manager. Is he still the general manager?
I think DaCosta is, or he's at least plays a role. Anyway,
Art Modell.
Is it Modell? I was gonna say,
yeah.
I didn't want to. Okay, so I watched this week. I watched the Bullies of Baltimore, 30 for 30.
Sure.
On ESPN. All right. You remember that Baltimore team back in the 2000s? With like Shannon Sharp and like Ray Lewis and like all the big personalities. These guys were like, they had the biggest personalities of any team I can remember in a really long time. And when they would cut to like the championship moments and they would be like, exuberantly jumping around and all excited and talking trash and stuff like that. And then you would see Modell just sitting there like this, just like
deer in the headlights.
Yeah, just like he's just like almost like shocked, like he was just like oh, okay. like someone startled him, like walked in the room and said boo. So the point is the disconnect, right?
Yeah,
because like Modell was one of the best. I mean, look, he took the team from Cleveland, and Cleveland hated him for it, but like what he did for Baltimore and the way he invested in the people he hired, like he was a very well-respected owner, but even he, I'm sure, would have got a lower grade.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I agree with you. That's long story to basically say, I agree with your point on there being a disconnect between the billionaires and the fresh out of college kids.
That said, like Dan Campbell ranking 3rd in terms of like coaching respect.
Question, A+.
Okay. So if you read the methodology.
No, I didn't. I was watching film.
Sorry. Oh, okay. I was busy watching film.
I have listen, I have 2 podcasts to do today, and I have my kid in a class after school and I have to get through this last thing. The linebackers are terrible. I hate going through the line. They're almost all awful. All right, go ahead, man.
I just wanted to point out how elitist you sound when you said, I was busy grinding tape.
No, I was not grinding
all right,
tape.
Greg Cosell, chill out.
I'm trying to get my last article done. My goodness, the amount of games I've had to watch I'm
just skip linebackers. We're not going to draft one in the first 3 rounds. It's fine.
I have not looked at. Listen. There might be 5 that I think could go in the top 100, and they're off my board. I'm not rewatching them another time. I'm not even bothering. I'm like, hey, they're really good. So Lions aren't going to draft them, even though 2 of them are probably like really, really good fits, but they're going to go in the top 100. If the Lions draft a linebacker in the top 100, I'm going to be very disappointed that I didn't take the extra couple hours to do this, but I don't have an extra couple hours in my day right now. I'm like, they're not going to draft it. Like, I'm like, they're returning their top 5 linebackers for 2 spots.
Yeah. They're okay. But anyways, yeah, so like last year, the report card, if you had the same overall grade, they just marked it as a tie. So the Lions would have been tied for first if they had used the same methodology. But now it's just like the base number. So you may have gotten, a 99.1%. That's an A+, but Kevin O'Connell got a 99.3%. And I forgot who the other one was. Probably Andy Reid. So it's the base number instead of the rounded grade value.
All right. I disagree with that.
You disagree with what? The methodology?
Yes.
Why? It's more exact. It's the, you know what? If I was at the owners' meetings, we're going to have a question about this. Because this has always bothered me, and I don't know why I went off on this tangent, but I think it's just because we go off on tangents. I absolutely...
every time.
I need, when the clock goes under a minute, please, can we move to a decimal system in terms of seconds?
Oh, yeah.
So that, I don't know,
like
say a team gets a snap off at the end of the third quarter after the clock already hit 0, and it happens to be like a 50-yard passing play. We can point to, hey, decimal had zeros. Don't give him this like, oh, but it just turned 0 and we give it this leeway. No, give me tenths of seconds so that we can and do that on the play clock too. For God's sake,
do it on the play before a big field goal, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. But like, I just this weird thing that the NFL does where the clock isn't really the clock. Particularly when it comes to the play clock, it's
the same thing as first downs. It's the same thing as first downs. This is about where we think he was.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I don't know how you can fix that. I don't
bring the guy with the chains out to where I just guessed. Oh, get the piece of paper. Oh, first down.
I just think like the decimal thing is.
You don't know how
such an easy fix.
They have the tech. The first down thing isn't?
No.
How do you, tennis has the lines where they have the like the videography technology to know, was it in or was it out, right?
Sure. Yeah. When there's only 2 people on the court, there's nobody else there. You don't have to coordinate it when an elbow is down or when a knee is down or when a thigh is down or a head is down.
No, okay. I'm not talking about ball placement, but I'm talking about okay, you can do it with ball placement too, especially if you look at soccer, right? Because you can see if that ball is going over the line or not, right?
But you get a clear angle in soccer. There's not 22 people all crammed around the football.
You can get, if you take that technology and you make it mobile, like you can get it. You can get that technology. No. Like, I'm not, listen.
I don't need an old man, an old crippled man telling me how to improve technology like he knows what it is.
Okay. Listen, there are a lot of things that they can do that they choose not to do because they're trying to save the integrity of the game and whatnot. But like, this isn't baseball where you're calling, balls and strikes, standing behind a plate, and there is a base of technology that's just like right there. It's right there, and we see it in all these other sports.
Yeah, they're called index cards to see if they got to the right chain. That has to be one of my favorite all-time moments in officiating history.
What's that?
The whipping out of the index card.
Oh.
When it's like, did he get the first down? I can't see with my eye, so I'm just going to... where did he have an index card? Like, he just had one in his back pocket?
Who knows?
YouTube chat, get it together, all right? YouTube chat has like, and this isn't unique to our channel. Like they have a very unique ability to just have conversations on their own. Like they've been talking about Graham Glasgow's contract for the past 10 minutes.
Nice.
Despite the fact that we didn't say anything about Graham. I don't know. They're arguing about numbers. One's like, you think
6 years or 1 year, 6 million?
Is that what you think? What did they pay him last year?
I think that's reasonable.
That's what they're arguing about, is like how much of an increase does he deserve, essentially. So let's answer that. You know what? Let's feed in to this conversation.
Oh yeah, why not? Let's look up his number. I don't remember what his number was.
Eric's about to throw something at me. What do you mean? We were just having a conversation.
If we were in person, I would have punched you.
See, but that's a thing. Like, if he's actually in the right, he'll just beat me with his words. But when he knows he's wrong, he threatens physical violence.
So he only made like 3.1 last year, but I don't think that counts the void, right? Because he has, how much money does he have voided this year?
I don't know.
I'm looking it up.
Okay.
I got it all written down. That's about 1.5. So basically got 4.6 in total, but they split it. They put 1.5 on the void, and then he got 3.1 in a cap hit, right? So he deserves a raise.
I'm seeing he only made 3.1 total.
Oh, is that 3.1 include the void?
Probably. I think so.
Really? It was that low? I mean, we wrote an article on it, so
it's true.
Might tell us.
It was worth up to 4.5 is what it was originally reported as. But I don't know if we did. Did we do like a detailed contract details?
Sure we did. It might have got mixed in with somebody else's.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I might have? I wonder if I have my breakdowns from last year.
There may have been some performance. Either way, let's assume it was somewhere between 3.1 and 4-ish.
Okay. He should be between 5 and 6.
5 and 6? So what, like 2 years, 12 million?
Hold on, I got it here. Right. I just gotta find it. On the page. There it is. Oh yeah, no. It was
3-1?
No, it was more than that.
No.
It was 2.1 and then 1.5 in the void. So that ends up being like 3.7 or 3.65 actually.
Okay. So between 3 and 4.
That's weird. How did they get 3?
You don't think he would ask for anything more than that?
Than 6?
Then 6. I mean, 6 seems like, that's almost double.
Yeah, but
that seems okay. That seems reasonable.
So who do you think he's like? Who's he better than? You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna look at, let's see what PFF has him estimated as. Yeah, they have 6.5.
Okay.
Average.
PFF does.
Guess. Yeah, that's their guess.
That's still pretty close to what we were estimating. It's tough, right? Because he played. PFF also had Graham as a top 10 guard, right? Like he finished with a top 10 grade, so PFF would, of course, probably fall on the higher end of estimates, I would imagine. But you got to imagine he's 31. He's playing on a team that he wants to play for. He's playing for a team that's a championship level team. But he's also a guy that has a lot of pride in himself, right? And he's gone through a lot of crap, and he doesn't want to feel disrespected either. So you don't want to lowball a guy like him.
Yeah, but he does just want to play with his friends.
He does. So yeah, I think like a 2-year, $12 million deal makes a lot of sense. You don't want to backload it too much, but at the same time, you probably don't want to go longer than 2 years, I would imagine, with Graham.
How old is he? 31?
Yeah. Maybe a third year. You could also, I mean, if you're worried about cap hit, you could maybe add a little bit more money and add a void year.
Yeah, I think you add void years on Graham's, just because you get him more. You get him more money that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get back in the show?
If you're in that range, he's worth it. Wherever you land on that scale, I think no matter what you think it should be, whether you think it should be 5 or whether you think it should be 6, I think you're both right. He's worth them both.
Old Wolf wants 3 for 15. That would be a great deal, but I don't know if Graham would want that. That seems like not enough of a raise for him.
Now let's what if it's 3 for 18 with 15 guaranteed? Now you're
3 for
talking.
18 with that's a lot of guaranteed money.
That's a lot of guaranteed money. Now you could do 3 for 18 with like 12 or it depends because like what Graham, if Graham takes a multi-year deal, the way that the Lions structure it is they almost fully guarantee the first year of the contract, plus they carry some guarantees into the second year. Right. So like if he does get a 2, let's just say go back to our original number, 2 for 12.
Yeah.
And they want to split it where it's like 5 and 7, 5 in the first year, 7 in the first. That means he's probably going to get 7 to 8 million of that guaranteed.
Right.
Probably 7. Right.
Right. Which
so that means
it could just be a 1-year deal where you're taking on like $2 million in dead cap next year.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that a 2 for 12 with 7 guaranteed. That seems reasonable and worth it.
Yeah. And essentially like a double your pay this year immediately. Like you get $7 million in your pocket right away. Essentially.
Yep. And put the voided years on just so you can extend it out. You lower your cap number that way. Everybody's happy.
All right. Graham, if you're watching, we just got your deal. We're your agents now. So you know what? And we'll just take 1%. That's it. That's all we're asking.
Take 0.5%.
All right. I think we're caught up. You want to get back into the show?
Sure.
All right. Chat, we're going to go back to the Twitter questions. We'll do another segment at the end here to answer some of your questions. Probably not have a ton of time to do that, but it's actually going to be a relatively quiet rest of the day, except for the fact that we have another podcast tonight.
Oh, you do?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I do too.
We have a first bite talking some CFL.
Oh boy!
Believe it or not, what?
Bringing John Wicker?
We are not bringing John. There's a CFL writer that we're going to talk to about Matthew Betts. And maybe a little bit of Quantez Stiggers as well. Talk about him. That's coming.
I was going to
go ahead.
I was going to include him in my draft profile, but he's not at the combine.
He did not get invited to the combine, sadly. Great story, though. Really, really fascinating story. But anyways, that's going to be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. Not whatever Canada time is. I know they span several time zones. I'm kidding. I don't even know if they go by minutes and hours up there.
Oh, man.
I got to get it all out of my system now before we have a Canadian guest.
100% get it out of your system now.
But anyway, 7:30 p.m. That's going to be both on Twitch and YouTube as always. So my girlfriend says, "What are they talking about? What is there to still say about football? The season is over." I feel you. Sometimes it feels like we're talking about nothing.
A boot nothing.
A boot nothing. That's right.
About a boot nothing, eh?
All right, here we go. let's get back into the show. Let me get my list of questions back up. Close out a bunch of tabs, so we're good to go. All right. And we are here back on the midweek mailbag, answering your questions, as always, live on Twitch and YouTube. Questions coming in from Twitter. Let's go back to Twitter, and our next question comes from Alan Hemming, who asks, how much would it cost to trade for L'Jarius Sneed if the Chiefs can't make a deal with him, and how much do you think the Lions are willing to trade if available? So news came out via, I believe, ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, saying they're prepared to use the franchise tag on L'Jarius Sneed if they can't get a long-term deal done, but they would also then be open to facilitating a trade. So basically, not using a franchise tag to potentially match or not match an offer and cost 2 first-round picks. Rather, it would be more of a scenario where they're just kind of like holding on to his rights. They'd be willing to trade him for whatever offers they get instead of like, I think that's how I was reading it. It wasn't like an offer sheet type of franchise tag situations where it would automatically cost for 2 first-rounders. So,
oh really?
I think that's what they were talking about.
Okay.
But either way, let's discuss this, because I think a lot of people read that tweet and their first reaction was like, oh, L'Jarius Sneed's available, let's go get him. My first reaction was, oh crap, it's not just going to cost a ton of money, it is now also going to cost draft picks. He's not in play anymore.
Yeah, that was my impression too.
Okay.
I'm saying, yeah. The read that I had was, hey, now you get a chance to pay this guy, $17.5 million. That's what PFF's number is. And you have to give up 2 draft picks in order to get to have that right to overpay.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it as, yeah, okay, he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because once you start applying franchise tags on guys, the franchise numbers are higher than probably what they would have made in free agency, right?
Yeah.
And that's done purposefully to discourage the use of franchise tags, right? For example, Sneed is Sneed is estimated to command about $17.5 million per PFF per year. The franchise tag is worth $19.8 million for corners. So right there, you're already over $2 million over the average. And with the franchise tag, that's due now, right? As opposed to being able to backload a contract and get a lower cap in year 1. So the franchise tag is purposefully restrictive, right? So once they start talking about adding franchise tags, I'm basically out of that conversation, right? Yep. If you're talking about just trying to maintain the rights or they're like trying to keep the door open for a potential return, I get that. But if I have to give compensation in addition to paying an exorbitant amount, I'm out of that game.
Yep.
I don't think you can. That's not how you build. And I don't think he's, honestly, let's be realistic here. He's a very good corner, but he's not like at the elite levels of corner play that you find in the league, in my opinion. And so I'm not willing to trade draft picks unless the Jalen Ramseys of the world, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Or like, your elite guys are available. And I don't know if I would put Sneed into that group. I think the cost is going to be too high regardless of what it is, and because of the situation that the Chiefs are creating.
Right. I mean, it comes down to how much do you trust Brad Holmes to draft? Because my trust in him is pretty darn high. And am I saying that he's going to find a L'Jarius Sneed at 29? No, not necessarily.
No.
But he's probably going to find a dude that can ball if he wants to target a corner. And it's going to cost him a heck of a lot less in terms of salary for the next 4 years. And so that alone is just like, I rather have those draft picks in Brad Holmes' hand than rather spending it on a player who is also going to cost north of $20 million a year. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense for the way they're building. It doesn't make sense for the way Brad Holmes has talked about how he wants to build the team, how they want to draft and develop. And this is going to go into the next question here because it's very much similar. And I'm just going to jump right into it. Jason Krolik asks, the Lions seem determined to focus more on depth rather than signing stars during free agency. Do you like that approach?
It's a less exciting approach.
Yeah.
But you also understand the approach because, as Dan Campbell said, that's how people are going to get injured. It's the NFL, and you need to have answers. So, we've talked about this a couple of times since the Lions season ended. One of the reasons that San Fran and KC were able to get to the pinnacle was because they had depth on their roster beyond their starters.
Yep.
And the Lions just aren't there yet. So while I agree with the philosophy of adding depth, I would also be okay with them spending a little bit of that money as well on some, higher priced free agents. So I understand it. I'm not going to say I disagree. But I think there's an opportunity to get better than just depth.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to do that too, right? Like
yeah.
There's a middle ground between going on a spending spree and going to get every single top free agent you can and only get depth guys, right? Like last year was a nice little happy medium of the two. You're probably not thrilled with how the Cam Sutton signing worked out, but you're probably pretty happy about with David Montgomery, right? That was a pretty mid-level signing, like maybe higher end of running backs that were on the market, but not like you weren't signing David Montgomery thinking you got an absolute superstar, and you got a guy who set his career touchdown record, I believe. And so, yeah, I would say that's a little bit of a mischaracterization of what the Lions' free agency plan is. I think they're not afraid to add starters. I imagine they're going to add probably at least 2 starters, I would say, in free agency, one at corner, one at guard, and that's assuming they don't re-sign some of their own guys. Maybe like an additional third on the defensive line. All that is certainly possible because, again, like Brad Holmes has said it, I've said it, free agency is to address your needs. The Lions have starting needs across the roster, particularly at corner, particularly at guard, particularly on the defensive line. So he's going to take care of those needs. Now, does he need to start being more aggressive? Does he need to start going for these high-end guys? I don't think so. And I'm kind of fine that he doesn't. And I think he exaggerates a little bit about, he has his company line of we don't want to win headlines in March. We want to win football games in December. And someone needs to talk to him about that too. Like, no, we're trying to win in January. Stop saying December.
I know.
Stop saying December. Like the regular season stretches into January at this point. We're talking playoff January, maybe even February.
There you go.
Yeah, even say February. Stop saying December. Either way, I don't feel this desire to go out and spend 15, 20 million on external free agents because I've seen that not work more often than I see it work. I really do. And there's bigger risk, long-term risk in hurting your salary cap. And the thing that Brad Holmes kept saying, and this is going to lead again to another question here, he doesn't know if he can trust guys outside the building. The reason why they build and develop internally is because they know these guys fit our scheme. These guys fit our culture. These guys aren't going to rock the boat. These guys are going to take to coaching. When you pull an external free agent, obviously you do as much character evaluation as you can from afar, but you're never going to know for sure. And so there are just too many things that can go wrong when you do invest $20 million on a player that you haven't coached before, that I'm just fine with these like 8, 7, 10, 12 million a year guys. You can get good players in that range and you can weather the storm if it doesn't work out. Like Cam Sutton, if that one doesn't work out, the Lions are going to have him basically off the books mostly after 2 years. They spent $11 million a year on the guy. That didn't break the book by any means. Like, his cap hit last year was negligible. Is he in the top 10 this year? He's probably in the top 10, but not by much in terms of the Lions cap hit. So that to me is a perfect signing. If it works out, great. You have a good player for 3 years. If it doesn't, you probably have a mediocre one for 2 years and that you overspent a little bit on. That doesn't hurt you as much.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think on offense, it's very easy because they're already good to just not want to overspend and just, spend what they need to retain because again, they know the players, they don't have to reinvest. On defense though, they're so lacking in a couple of areas.
Yeah.
And they have two massive holes, starting vacancies on defense that you almost feel like they need to get an impact player. I don't know. That's why I guess I'm comfortable with it, right? Like, I'd be okay trying to spend a little bit more to try and bring in a guy. And the trick is it's just a matter of how you spend. They're going to spend. It's just a matter of but I mean, like, even if we started including like draft capital, right? Like, they're going to spend money to acquire players. They're going to spend draft capital to acquire players. And so far they've chosen to spend more on their draft capital than they have on their free agency.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting question. I asked the question this in our Reacts poll. What do they need to win in order to be successful this year? Right. What do they need? Do they need to be hit free agency where you can get better immediately, or do you need to really kill the draft where historically that's how they've gotten better immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like, so,
but we've talked all this offseason about how we can't get used to that immediate impact from a rookie class, right?
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of what I tried to illustrate in that piece too, was like, you're probably not going to draft 4 starters in 2 Pro Bowlers and 1 All Pro in this draft class, right? Like, so if you're not going, because you just don't have the draft capital to try and acquire that. But if you want to keep getting better, then you have to spend in a different way to add, and that's when I think you have that availability in free agency, which is again why I still think spending money on a corner, spending money on a defensive tackle, those are decisions I would be completely comfortable with.
Fair. Speaking of defensive tackle, our next question is going to move into that nicely. Between the numbers, Anthony asks, with the hiring of Terrell Williams and other new coaches, do you see any potential free agent fits from their former teams? Brad notes that with external acquisitions, they really need to know the guy that beyond the film. Exactly what I was just saying. Like, so let's just look at Terrell Williams, because there are some interesting names there, particularly along the Titans' defensive line that are free agents. Probably most substantial of them all, I would say, is Danico Autry, who's 33 years old, but he's coming off an 11 and a half sack season. The other names there, Travis Gibson, Marlon Davidson, and Ross Blacklock. Any of those 4 guys, including Autry, move the needle at all for you?
I don't know if Autry is he's similar in the way that you use John Kaminsky, but he's going to cost more than John Kaminsky.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you'd have to like bail on Kaminsky, take the cap hit, and then invest more than you were investing in John Kaminsky, plus now his cap hit as well. Like, is he that much better than John Kaminsky? Like, that much more money? I don't think he is, especially at his age compared to John Kaminsky. I think there's other ways that you can go after acquiring a pass rusher.
Right.
So I don't think Autry would be on my radar at the price point that he's being projected as, right?
Yeah.
So I would say no on that. So I honestly don't know if any of the Titans free agent defensive linemen are really going to.
There's really not that much in terms of production, and the rest, those other three
Right.
guys that I named on, like you have like a couple of big names, like Marlon Davidson was a second round pick, but has basically completely burnt out, completely not doing anything. Um,
Right.
and so Danico Autry is really the entire conversation if you're going to talk about defensive linemen coming from the Titans. And yeah, I mean, it's a weird place to be, right? Because he's going to be 34 for most of 2024. How much are you going to hand out to a guy? Granted, he's coming off back-to-back years where he did have 10 plus sacks, but he's 34.
Right. And if he came here with the way that the Lions run the scheme now,
He's
I
probably going
don't
to have
even
10 and a
know
half
if he
sacks. Yeah.
well, but I don't know how he'd be utilized,
Right.
right? Like, yeah, like because of the way that they use that kind of speed rushing linebacker offset, and then the way that they ask their guys to run block first or to stop the run first.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'd even have that opportunity, and then you add the age in, and it just becomes like if he was like, "Hey, I'd sign for $2 million,"
Right.
I'd be like, "Well, bring him on." You know what I mean? But
Sure.
if he's, but like he's probably going to demand more than that, especially when you're still doing double digit sacks, right? And so, and I would expect him to demand more than that. So that's why I'm not as in love with that marriage as I would like to be. I'd love to be able to pair a player with a coach. You know what I mean? Like I think
Right.
there's value there, but I just don't. There's nothing that really jumps out to me that I'm saying, wow, you absolutely have to go do that.
Yeah. And just for the record, the PFF is estimating a 1 year, $7.25 million deal for Danico Autry. So yeah, any money that
There
you
you
would
go.
save from potentially cutting John Kaminsky would be spent and then some for someone like Autry, who, granted he would probably give you more production, but he'd also be playing an entirely different defense and all that. So I'm not sure if there's anyone to pluck there from the Titans tree. Autry is clearly the only name there, and I'm with you. I think it might be a little too pricey given everything, unless he really really loves Terrell Williams and really really wants to continue to play for him.
Which, hey, head coach has an A+, right,
That's
on
right.
the grade scale for players. So that's a good selling point. Look, because like players look at those things. Players are gonna they see what the other players are saying,
Yeah,
and who was the number one coordinator that from that poll earlier in the season
I think it.
that players loved.
I think it was Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, it was. So Lions have some look. The Lions are
Their destination.
they are a player's destination. Yes, exactly. Um, I mean, they didn't work directly with Williams, but like they got a couple corners in free agency that are interesting depth pieces, like Sean Murphy Bunting, who played at Central,
Sure.
right? Like he's a guy you could bring in. He's a little bit more zone guy, but like he's a guy you could bring in and try and see what he does. Um, Christian Fulton, the
Sure.
former LSU
Yeah.
corner. You could take like those guys are good depth pieces, right? Because even if you add a starter one way or another, you still need the cupboard is empty. Like
In the
it,
secondary,
they
like
have
not even just corner, right?
yeah
Safety too,
yeah they have they have they have their starters.
and then
My
safety.
at both starters at safety, starter in the nickel, starter at one corner. They have no starter at one outside spot, and then they have no depth really anywhere.
Right.
And so, like, you're talking about like you could draft or sign
Four.
two safeties and
Yeah.
three corners,
Yeah.
and one of those corners needs to be able to start.
Yep.
Like now, some of the like they retain Mosley, or maybe they had
Jerry.
a draft pick, or what. Yeah, there's lots of things you can do. But there is a void of depth on this roster, and so find connections, and maybe there is something that one of these guys, maybe Sean Murphy wants Bunting wants to come back to where come back home. You never know.
Speaking of defense, speaking of coaching staff, Mink on Twitter asked Mink0029 asked, with AG staff upgraded and likely additions, potentially better defensive players through the free agency and draft, do you think this upcoming year will be a make or break year for Aaron Glenn? If not, what is the expectation for improvement, at least for the pass defense?
Well, I don't think it's make or break. I think Dan Campbell loves AG too much. I think if there was going to be pressure on him, it's going to probably come from Sheila and Brad, not from Dan. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So expectations. When they were 32nd in the league, we said, just get them into the low 20s. Right. Just get and I think, I don't know where they ended up as a team overall last year, but I feel like
points per game was 23rd, if that's your metric of choice.
And we said, if you get into the 20s, the offense is good enough to get you into playoffs and get you to win. And that's exactly what happened, right?
Yep.
So huge catalyst in this was the run defense being number one.
Yes.
Right. Being that top run defense. And so you've already taken one big step.
Yep.
So the linebackers have taken a huge step.
Yep.
So it's really just the secondary that needs to take that step. And if that secondary can take that step to go from 32 and again into the low 20s from 32 would get your defense into now the teens. That is the progress that you want. And now you're competing for much bigger prizes next year. And so that's what has to get better with Aaron Glenn. And it should be his bread and butter because that's where he play. Like it should, it's startling to me how many times we see this happen in the NFL, where a player or a coach is so good or should be so good at this one spot, and that's the spot that struggles, and everything else seems to get better. But that spot that he really should be good at is the worst spot. You see with like defensive-minded head coaches, like they always think, let's invest heavily in the offense because I can fix the defense because I called the greatest play in Super Bowl history. And then it never comes to fruition.
There it is.
Because yeah, right. Because like you think you can fix it without talented players because you're good enough at it. The time has come. You need to invest in this secondary.
Yep.
You're not just going to get there on Aaron Glenn's chops alone. You need a lot more talent. And if you can add that talent with a spot that he should be good, maintain your success in your other areas, then you're going to have a much better team that's going to have a much better shot, right? And so that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's what he needs to do to feel secure and to feel safe. At the same time, I also don't think Dan's ever going to really put him on the hot seat because he loves him. The players love him.
Yeah, and that those things shouldn't be discounted. And I remember, a year and a half ago when a reporter even asked Dan, like, "Hey, you're pretty good friends with AG. Is that going to get in the way of you potentially firing somebody?" And he gave the right answer, which is no. Like, listen, there has to be a certain amount of emotion removed from decisions like that. And he pointed to, like, listen, it's not like I didn't respect. What's his name? The offensive coordinator in year one, Anthony Lynn.
Yep.
It's not like I didn't respect Aubrey Pleasant, right? Like those are guys that
didn't fit.
They just didn't fit. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you it can't be a break year for Aaron Glenn. Like if things go off the tracks, at some point there has to be some accountability there in the secondary. It's not like they haven't invested anything in there, right? The starting safeties next year are going to be both guys that they drafted, and they invested heavily in Cameron Sutton, and they invested heavily in Brian Branch. And so there is talent there. And so if in year two with all these guys returning and playing together and all that, there has to be a turnaround. There has to be some sort of change, and you can't continue to just rotate through your defensive backs coaches and blame them. At some point, it has to fall on Aaron Glenn's lap. And I'm not saying, if they're, 20th in points allowed again next year, that he's gone. But if they regress, or if they don't get any better, particularly on the back end, I think you have to at least think about it.
I agree with you. From our chair, that's the right answer.
Right.
What you're saying. I can't get past the idea that
Dan loves him.
he is everyone loves him.
Yeah.
The coaches love him.
It matters.
The players love him. That matters. And there's also, I believe, a big disconnect in what the general media public perceive as success versus what coaches in the NFL perceive as success.
Yeah.
And I think that they believe he's a lot more successful than what us outside of the building believe.
Right.
And so I think he's in a much better spot than what.
Yes. I don't think he's on the hot seat, to be clear.
No.
I'm just saying, he could get on the hot seat progressively as the season.
Yeah. But I mean, he's getting head coaching interviews, still, that's why that's why I continue to and everything you hear coming out of Allen Park and everything you hear coming out of the NFL is he has the right stuff, and we see games where when it clicks, it's like, holy cow. Right. But it's just, the consistency is not. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there's a little bit of I think there's this feeling, and I think it's one I might agree with, that Aaron Glenn might be better suited as a leader, as a delegator, as a head coach than he is a defensive coordinator. And so that's what, I mean, if your players really respect you, if you're getting head coaching interviews, if you command a room when you're in front of a podium, those are all qualities for a good head coach that doesn't necessarily make you a good defensive coordinator.
No, I get it. I agree with that. It just, the vibe I get whenever he comes up is he doesn't seem in any danger to me.
I agree. Yeah.
From inside the building.
Internally. Yep. That makes sense. All right. I think we're going to call it there. We're going to hang around for our live audience a little bit longer, answer some more questions that we didn't get to. But as always, if you want to be a part of that, make sure you're following us on Twitch. Make sure you're following us on YouTube. But we appreciate you all the same, no matter where you consume our content. So for Erik, for myself, Jeremy, thank you all for listening. It's Cass. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
All right. If you do have more questions, feel free to throw them in either one of the chats, Twitch or YouTube. There was one more we didn't get to on our rundown, which I want to get to here. From Nate Savage says, are there any rumors to talking points that will be discussed in this year's owners meetings in Orlando next month? So those are happening in about a month. I'll be down there, which will be fun because it's always a very unique and very strange event. So there, I've seen a couple things thrown out in terms of new rules and stuff. It sounds like, to all of you people that think this is the worst rule in sports, the fumble out of the end zone touchback thing. I think I saw a report out there that says that there's not been any progress been made there.
Judy Batista,
that's right. Which personally I agree with. I think it's fine. I don't understand why people all of a sudden are very angry about it. It's a rule that's been around forever. Mm-hmm. And I just personally, I think you need to have the ball secure when you're towards the goal line. I love the high stakes of it, honestly.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to, is that it's the offensive player's responsibility to maintain possession of the ball.
Yeah.
And so if you don't, too bad.
That's your fault. The other rumor that I've seen, and it's more really a report than a rumor, is that it sounds like they're also going to seriously consider some alternatives to the kickoff, including the XFL one where everyone's basically already down the field. Or is it the other way? Is everyone still up the field? I don't remember. I think everyone's already down the field. And so there's not going to be any high impact collisions.
Okay. That's a new one to me. I didn't hear about that one.
Yeah. And if that's the case, I like that one too, honestly. I'm still
Well,
more in favor
you
of just
like
getting.
a
I'm still more in favor of just
oh,
getting rid of the kickoff. But
there you go. Uh,
if
I
you
was waiting for that penny to drop.
if you well, here's the thing. Like, here's what the league wants. They want to keep the playoff, and they want to keep keep the kickoff, and keep the game safe. But those are two diametrically opposite goals that just they don't fit together. I'm sorry, like the kickoff, it cannot be a safe play. It's always going to be disproportionately more dangerous than any other play because you have guys running long distance. Now, I will admit the XFL is a very creative way to cut into that, but is it still going to be more safe than a normal play? Probably not.
Isn't the XFL the one where they both sprinted towards the ball and like dove head first? That one? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not talking about the face off that was for who gets the ball.
Oh, that
first.
was for that was yeah, my fault. My fault.
Okay, you're just taking shots at the XFL, at the 20-year-old XFL, might I add.
That guy, remember when that guy like broke his collarbone on the first play of the XFL?
Yeah. Because Vince McMahon's a freaking idiot. Get that man as far away from anything that you run. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. People say they'd hate missing kickoffs and it would ruin the game for them. Newsflash, kickoffs have been gone for the past 5 years. And you didn't care. You still love football. Football ratings are still destroying. The salary cap is jumping record numbers. Just get rid of it. It's a formality. Get rid of it. You'll forget about it, I promise, in 2 years. Most. Probably by like week 4.
The problem is there is a substantial portion of the league that is in the league because of special teams. And the NFLPA is not going to be in a hurry to try and get rid of.
You're not getting rid of them. They're still on your roster. You're not going to shorten rosters. If anything, you're going to teach these guys to be better defenders or better offensive players.
Okay. But if you're deciding between a veteran special teamer and a young guy who's better at defense but not as good on special teams, that veteran might make the actual roster.
Sure.
And that lower guy will try and get on a practice squad. If there is no special teams,
sure,
that younger kid's going to get the chance, and that veteran's going to be gone, and the union it's their job to protect that veteran. And that's why I'm saying the union will push back, in my opinion, if they try and get rid of.
There's not a lot of typewriter mechanics still employed either.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're at the age, listen, if you're a typewriter mechanic and you're 50 years old and everybody switches to computers at 50 years old, you're pissed. Probably not going to learn how to, you're probably, yeah. And then what happens to your life? You bet you're going to go to your typewriter mechanic, repair union, and you're going to be like, hey, make the typewriters still applicable for newspapers. And that way I can still be employed.
So let's slow down the progress of the entire game of football for this one generation of special teamers.
Look, I will just tell Jalen Reese-Maybin that you hate him. That's okay. I will just tell him that. I will tell him that you think his all-pro nomination
saying how much I love special teams.
Yeah, it's a lie. You have a plaque that lies, and you keep it on your desk. You present it on your desk proudly.
I present it in front of myself so that I can try to convince myself to care about special teams, and it hasn't worked.
Trying to man.
A couple alerts here before we get to any more questions that you guys have. Woodchuck Hunter, thank you for the 100 bits, who says, what do you call a French traveling bathroom? A le porta-potty.
Oh my goodness. It's an all-pro traveling bathroom.
That's right. And Monkey81, thank you for the 12 months, 1 full year subscribe to the channel. Don't boo me. That was Woodchuck Hunter. You could boo the delivery. That probably wasn't a very good French accent. Plus, I did the Italian.
What do you mean? You nailed it.
Oh, thank you.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I like that you cross-culturally made fun of two different cultures at the same time.
Do French people not do this
disrespected
too?
both of them? I don't. I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I can justify that or support it in any way.
Sure. Did you have something else you were going to say?
We had another question. There is no way I'm going to pronounce that name.
You coward. Go for it.
No, it starts with an X. Like it's
Xavier.
XLOS.
It's Lost Oceans.
Is it?
I don't know.
No, because the X is throwing me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. All right. Don't throw me off with. I'm old, man. I have a hard. Like I gotta adjust my bifocals so I can see the screen properly. He says, if the Lions move on from Cabinda, do you expect to see Malcolm Rodriguez play more fullback in 2024?
They moved off that pretty quickly, didn't they?
Oh yeah, because they very quickly realized that a fullback was less important than special teams, and they didn't
Really?
need to go to it anymore.
My read on it was he caught that pass and like, oh gosh, Jason Cabinda can't catch the ball. We don't want him to get jealous.
Oh God, I think they would. I think
really
Cabinda's injury. Well, what, the interception in is that what no, you're talking about the actual at fullback? Yeah. That interception that he had in week 18, in the division championship, whatever it was. I think that they're going to continue to use an H-back, and they're going to use different people for that specific role.
Yeah,
because the role, they only use it like they might use it 6 times a game if they use it at all. Like they don't use it more than that. Like, I don't think they're gonna have a dedicated fullback anymore.
It's weird though, because like we were here a year ago, and most fans were like, "You guys don't use fullbacks. Stop rostering Jason Cabinda," and we were like, "No, they're gonna roster Jason Cabinda. They really like him
because of his special teams, right? Too, yeah,
right." But I think Lions fans might have a better case this year. Or it's just like, yeah, they might be done because like he was on the practice squad at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, you don't put him on, and he's now a street free agent.
Right. They didn't give him a layup of a futures deal.
Right.
And he wants to be back. He did that interview with. It was funny. He did a Raiders radio interview during the Super Bowl week, and I think they're like, "Hey, you want to come back to the Raiders? Like, I know your career got started here. We got a new regime, blah blah blah." And he's like, "So what team? If you could sign with any of them, would you sign with?" And he'd be like, "The Lions, man." He's like, "Oh, I think they were really hoping he was going to say Raiders." And he's like, "No, man. I know him in Vegas. I want to play for Dan Campbell."
I think he represents so much of what they want in a player.
Yeah.
I keep going back to the point that you can't have a guy whose primary role is as a special teamer anymore. Like, those roles are getting squeezed out when your roster gets better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're at.
Right.
They don't have a gunner who's just a gunner. They don't have a line and up guy who's just that. Like, those days are gone. That's why Anthony Pittman, Chase Lucas, Jason Cabinda, they're all vulnerable. Like Dorsey, like they're all vulnerable to maybe not returning as the roster gets deeper, because they're all really good special teamers. But if you're not being utilized beyond that, and if you're not being utilized beyond that, I don't know, like, you're vulnerable.
Yeah. And that's why I kind of reject all of these headlines. Lions sign Jalen Reeves-Maybin to record special team deal. I'm like,
No, he's a linebacker. Yeah,
he's he's playing
played
a
a lot
dozen
down the
snaps a
stretch.
game towards the end of the season. Like
Their
that's
linebacker usage near the end of the season was like
it
insane
was all
to
over the
me. Like
place.
how many they used like four or
Yeah,
five guys in a scheme that only requires two.
yeah.
Like, and you could pick two and just run those two 100% of the snaps and be done. Instead, they're like, let's this guy here and this guy there. It's like
It's
use
all
them all.
right, and it's all about utilizing them to their personal strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's getting Jalen Reeves Maben in on third down because he can provide a little bit of pass rush, but most importantly, he's your best coverage linebacker.
It was funny at when we were in San Fran, and Barnes gets hurt, and the person
By
to
the
my
way, Erik
right,
just said it's funny when a player gets hurt.
nope. I said the situation was after that.
Oh,
The comment that was interesting to me
uh-huh.
was that the person to my right said,
Mm-hmm.
"Are you a bit surprised that they're using Malcolm at the mic instead of Jalen Reeves Maben at the mic?" And I said, "Well, they're both better suited for the will. I'm a little surprised they didn't move Anzalone over, but I understand wanting to keep Anzalone at the spot that he's been most successful." I said, "So if you're going to keep Anzalone there, I agree with you. They should probably use Reeves Maben." And then it was about 30 seconds after I said that Malcolm got that pick, and I went, "Oh, I
Oops,
guess
that's right.
that's why they're playing
Oops.
him." But it made like
Yeah.
but Reeves Maben had established himself like as a very reliable player. But again, they play to his strengths,
Yep.
right? Like trying to replace Derek Barnes, it was they had this concept in mind that they had to use Jack on the outside. They had to use
Right.
they had to keep their guy. They wanted to keep everything in place
Sure.
instead of moving everybody. And so it was a weird situation, but they became so dependent on this linebacker core at the end of the season. It was a very big juxtaposition from where they were, you know, in training camp even.
Yeah. Um.
Believe it or not, Jalen Reeves-Maben is the least athletic of the linebackers on the roster, but he's just like he has like these certain skills that come out in certain situations that just make him look like he's like this like super athlete. Like when you put him on special teams, when you put him in like kind of pass coverage, he looks way more athletic than the other guys, but the other guys are all they're all very athletic.
Yeah. That's their type. Their type is the opposite of Matt Patricia linebackers.
It's like a completely 180. Like it's
By
I'm
the
not
way,
even joking, man.
I want to commend you really quick because a lot of people use that phrase wrong. They say it's a complete 360. No, 360 puts you exactly where you were. 180 is the opposite direction. Anyways,
The linebackers that were on the roster, I'm gonna just read through. I'll go real fast. Because I keep track of every every player that's ever been on the roster over the last few years, right? So when you just look at linebackers, okay, so this includes the ones that they had on the roster before they started. Rascore, Jamie Collins was a 9, right? Over 9. So,
Yep.
but I mean, we all knew Jamie Collins was freaky.
right.
After him,
He also hung
the
around. He's the only linebacker that hung around really
right.
for 6 games or whatever it was.
After him, the RAS scores of the next linebackers that were like let go or were with the roster 7, 1, 1, 2, 9, 7, 2. Like these are the guys that were around before. Like that's now, if you go back to even like Isaac Darkangelo in Nowoski, 7, 9, 6, 6, 9, 8, 9, 8. Like there is a very big difference from the linebackers they have now compared to the linebackers that they had, because I mean they were all like just big bulk over athleticism. That's what they wanted.
Yep.
And I don't know why it didn't work. It was so weird. was so weird to me. It didn't work.
I didn't even realize how far back your little Excel sheets went. Like the fact that you have Tavante Beckett, and I don't even who's Jalen Alexander. You made that guy up.
UDFA, right? I'm sure it was UDFA. Like positive.
I don't know. You made that guy up.
Yeah, the kid on he was on tryout. That was a tryout guy. That's why you don't remember.
Okay. So he never was under contract. That makes sense.
Correct.
Where does it say that? Does it say that somewhere?
Far left.
Oh, I wasn't scrolled far left enough. Tryout. There it is. Why does one just have numbers?
What do you mean?
Sean Dean Hamilton just has numbers on my sheet. And so does Jared Davis. That's a draft pick. That's where the draft pick. Got it. Never mind. Anyways,
197.
We're just talking about Erik's crazy draft board thing that you can get for just $5 a month by subscribing to Erik Schlitt's Patreon, which is the Detroit Lions Breakdown Podcast Patreon.
Very kind of you to mention that.
Mm-hmm. It is a crazy amount of information, and it's going to be very valuable as we get closer to the draft.
I have to get my linebacker article done, but and I have the podcast tonight. But if I can get both of those things done, I would like to do another board update. I would like to have because there's been a lot of rankings that have come out since I published my last one. So I'm hoping if I can find the time to try and do a quick board update and get that out before the combine tomorrow. So that's on my agenda.
Fingers crossed.
I gotta get linebackers got to get done first, and then I'll see what I can do.
Well, all right. Let's give Erik some time to get all that stuff done and head out of here. We will be back, as I mentioned earlier, live tonight, 7:30 p.m. Talking some CFL, some Matthew Betts, and a little bit of Quantez Stiggers. Just going to be a little short podcast to kind of familiarize yourself a little bit with Matthew Betts in terms of what the Lions are getting, in terms of what kind of player and person he is. And I want to hear more about the Quantez Stiggers story in terms of a top 30 visit for the Lions this year, but a guy who's didn't play a snap of college football entering the NFL draft. Should be fascinating. But anyways, that's going to do it for this stream. Join us 7:30 tonight, not tomorrow night, tonight. And then follow us on the website for all of your NFL Combine coverage that you're looking for. Anything before we get out of here?
Nope, we're good.
All right. We're going to get out of here then. I'm not going to rate anybody because none of my best friends are alive.